After e4, e5, knight c3. Now black can play loads of different things. We've been seeing a lot of stuff over the last 35 or 36 videos. This is going to be the final chapter. So we're going to see the things we haven't seen yet. Let's start with this one. Let's start with bishop c5. Now, we've obviously seen a lot of this, but there's this line that we haven't seen yet. So f4 and d6. As we know, knight f3, knight c6, and now the thematic knight a4. Now, in the past we went through bishop b6 or maybe bishop to g4 immediately, and then after bishop b6 we know we have to play bishop b5, but then there's also a6, there's also b7, knight e7, and we've been talking about how to win in every single scenario. In this case though, after knight a4 attacking the bishop, what if black ignores it and plays this move? I needed to make a video about this because it happened to me quite a few times. Obviously it's not a very good move, but it's a bit unusual, and black is starting a strong attack on e4 already. So how to react? Okay, here you just take this pawn first. Now obviously the pawn cannot take back because otherwise knight wins bishop for free. And black taking the knight is also, the knight taking the knight is also wrong because you can take and then the pawn can't take back since you're going to take the bishop. This bishop is actually a fairly loose piece. So after this move, now the opponent has to do something. And the only thing left to do is this. Knight takes pawn. So now we're equally material. And the knight's also defending the bishop. What to do now? Now we have to take the bishop. And see, the thing is, the pawn cannot take the knight because d3 wins the black knight. This knight's got nowhere to go. See, d6, f6, g5, all of these squares are taken. g5 is attacked by two pieces. So the pawn cannot take. So that means that the knight in c5 has to be taken back with the knight. But now this is kind of ugly because you're going to play d4 and you're isolating the opponent pawn. See, this knight can't go anywhere that makes sense, to be honest. I mean, it could go to a6 maybe, but it's getting really silly now. Like knight can't go to e6 because e6 d5 will be attacking two pieces at the same time, so you're winning material. So let's look at this move, knight to d7. Okay, now we take this pawn and we're isolating the pawn of the opponent. So this is already an advantage, and now we're going to play bishop g5. Now there's no way, like black king is actually so unsafe that there's no way that black can actually do anything about it. Like queen to b6, for example, already loses to queen e2 check. And now the king can't move anywhere, it will have to go to f8, but now you long castle. So this is obviously a very bad move from our opponent. Black can't move this knight, this rook in h8 anytime soon. We've got the two bishops, black has a weakness, and there's no attack either. So back in this position after bishop g5, let's not look at this move, knight to e7, pinning itself, because, I mean, what's the point? White will continue with bishop to d3, and he will keep pinning the knight. Let's say, for example, h6. You can never get rid of this bishop, right? Unless you want to create the weakness of pawn to f6. But that's obviously wrong. Bishop to h4. Black can't get, like, you can't just move this knight because obviously you can, take it and you're breaking the pawn structure of the opponent. And obviously here, if black plays g5, you play bishop to g3, targeting the weakness. d5 is really bad because that gives you such an amazing square for the knight. Queen to c7 instead to defend the pawn, and then you're just gonna castle. Position evaluated +3 because look at this king, it will never be safe. There's no way to save, to put that king to safety. And in this position, instead of g5, I mean, a move like a knight to f6 is bad because you can just take. And again, this is a much favorable winning endgame for white. So in this position, what about f6? Okay, well, now we have to move the bishop to d2, but we created a weakness. Castle, bishop c4 check, king moves, castle. And now, well, there's too many things that can happen, so we're gonna have to close the line. Before we do that, let's just see a couple of ideas just to see how to take the game. Here we have an advantage because black has got a isolated pawn and we got the bishop pair. So basically, that's just black having played an idea, an opening, a defense that turned out to be faulty, and you're punishing it. There's too many moves now that could happen. It could be like a5, a6, b6, b5. It could be a6 with the idea of b5, but either way, black is already in a much worse position. Let's look at this one, knight to b6, attacking the bishop. Okay, bishop to d3. And these two bishops are not going to be traded. Let's make, for example, let's see this. Bishop, black will have to develop the bishop, right? Bishop to g4, for example. And now you simply attack it. So that was a bad move, because now the bishop will have to give up for the knight. You can take back. Yeah, it looks like we're losing this pawn, but we're actually not. Just think about it. If black does win that pawn, then queen e4 attacks the knight and the square of checkmate. That means the opponent will have to give up the knight. It's a piece we've won completely for free. And here, the bishop will have to retreat, but then you can attack it again, and you can take it here. This king becomes very weak. So back here, what if the bishop goes to e6 to develop in that way? Well, fine. Okay, b3. You can play c4 eventually, and threaten d5. Queen to d7 developing. Knight to h4. We like this square, f5. This is the best square to be. Obviously, we're not going to look at g6, because the game here becomes compromised even more, because you're going to have to punish this weakness. You can infiltrate with the bishop, and you take it from there. This is a terrible move, positionally speaking. What about knight takes the pawn in d4? What is the threat we're making? Okay, queen to h5 is the threat. And we're threatening, well, the knight is able to jump to g6. And also we're threatening h7. There's no way to stop it. If you play g6, it can just be taken. If you go back with the bishop, then knight g6 is made. If you play g5, then again, you've got knight g6 possible. Should be a very easy win now. Okay, let's change topic. And here, knight to c6, f4, d6. Let's look at this one, knight f3. And now we're actually dealing, finally, right in the final chapter, we're dealing with one of the most traditional lines that often arise when you play the Vienna. So bishop to g4 now. This is like the two white knights. The pawn is in f4, and black has developed the knight in c6 and the bishop in g4. How to deal with this? Well, bishop to b5. So what they're doing is, black is pinning your knight, is trying to play knight to d4 and put pressure on that knight. So you pin the black knight. And we have this idea. We've got double attack on e5. That's the whole point of playing the Vienna Gambit. You got this double attack on e5, and you want to take the knight, and then got the double attack on e5. So let's make a couple of examples here. If black takes the knight, obviously take back. And we have seen ideas of knight to e7, how to deal with them. We have seen it in some of the previous videos. So what about knight to f6 now? These two knights developed into the center. Now here, you play knight to d5. This is the key move to remember. Two moves we're going to look at just to see how to take it. Let's make an example. If black just develops, let's see, bishop to e7. Now you take this pawn in e5, takes back, and now queen to c3, double attack on this knight. And it's impossible for our opponent to stop it, unless he wants to play king to d7. But that's absolutely horrible. Besides, this knight is still pinned, and you're also hitting the pawn on e5. So here you might wonder, okay, what about defending with the queen? Let's say queen to d6. Well, either way, you're going to take. And now queen takes is not possible because you can swap queens. Pawn takes back, and then knight c7 check wins the exchange. Whereas pawn takes back has to happen. And now you also take the bishop. And now the king has to take, because if queen takes, then queen c6 wins a pawn. And the game, as you can tell. So king is forced to take. And now simply d3 to develop. Rook h to d8. The opponent will be able to find some safety with the king. Okay, you keep developing. Bishop e3. King e8. Obviously, because king f8 now runs into bishop c5, winning the game. Pinning the queen to the king. So king e8, castle. Knight to g4 by black, attacking the bishop. Okay, bishop to c5. Queen h6 is simply met with h3. Winning. h3 now simply wins the game, because after knight f6, you still have this check. The knight will no longer be protecting e5. And this is a deadly position for our opponent, as you can tell. So instead of queen h6, after this attack, what about queen to e6? Okay, well, rook to f5, putting more pressure over e5. This rook cannot be kicked out with g6, because you will simply go back to f3. You've created another weakness. and you're ready to double up the rooks. There is no coming back for black anyway. So let's make a recap and we'll look at the other line. So we look at the Vienna with knight c6, the traditional one, and then d6, knight f3. Okay, so we've opened all the knights, we've got our pawn in f4, bishop to g4, pinning a knight. Okay, we go and pin as well. And now we're looking at the immediate taking the knight. Okay, queen takes back, knight f6, knight to d5 comes. So earlier we went through bishop e7 developing. What about the knight taking our knight? This obviously has to be taken back with attacking the knight. The knight is pinned. Black has to play a6 attacking the bishop, and you ignore it. You take the knight. Pawn takes back, and now you take this pawn. Rook a6, best move to stop queen c6 threat. Okay, b3. We gotta develop. Bishop e7, bishop b2, castle a4 is the move that does the job. We're threatening to take this pawn. This bishop in b2 is obviously defending this rook, and it's putting pressure on this weak pawn. And we're threatening to just take another pawn here in b5. If black does take, then you take back with the rook, and you're forcing a swap of rooks, and you're also reuniting the pawn structure. It doesn't get any easier now. Okay, another recap. Let's see another scenario. So bishop g4, bishop b5. What about this move? Actually is quite popular as well. Not as much, but it has to be seen. Queen d7 with the idea, because you see the thing is here, we're threatening to take this knight, pawn takes back, and now we take here, pawn takes back, and we've created this weakness. If you've been following this series of how to win with the Vienna Gambit, then you know exactly what the plan is. So in this position, here black plays queen to d7 to stop that. So if we take, black can take back. So okay, attack the bishop. Now the bishop can't go back because g4, bishop g6, and then f5 traps the bishop. The bishop is now forced, also can't go to e6 because f5 once again. So the bishop is forced to take the knight. And now you take back. And now the pawn attacks the bishop. What to do? Take. Also, we want to stop knight d4 jump. Okay, queen takes back. And now simply castle. Queen c5 check is completely useless. The king was going to go to h1 anyway. It's not a problem. So let's just go on with development. Knight f6, d3. Bishop e7, developing. Rook f2. Piling up on the f file. Castle. And how to make this move now? f5. Here's the thing. Our opponent only has a dark square bishop, so we like it that our opponent, that our bishop's got so many squares under attack, and black has got these two pawns. So when black gives up the light square bishop, feel free to play this kind of move, at least in this scenario. And you already started pushing pawns, like h3 is a very good move to play, and you're going to play g4 and g5 afterwards. So rook a to d8 to get into the game. Okay, bishop to g5, attacking the knight. h6 attacking the bishop. What are we doing here? Ignore it. Play knight d5. If pawn takes bishop, knight takes bishop here in e7 wins the queen. So black taking this knight is not possible, because if he does, then you take back, you're equal, but then you've got a pawn attacking the queen and a bishop attacking the bishop. So the only move to play will be queen to d7. But then you can play f6. Look, take, goes here, and now you have a sacrifice in h6. And that breaks the protection of the king, because then pawn takes back, but now you play f6, trapping the bishop. Yeah, you might say that we also gave up a bishop. So, what exactly are we achieving? Well, we're also achieving, you see, the thing is, now we're threatening queen, g3 check, and then g7 is checkmate. So, taking here just allows us to keep going, take, and there's no way for the opponent to kick our queen away from that square, if you notice. So black king to h7, for example, the idea to play rook to h8, rook to g8, and protect the king on the g file is met with queen e4 check. So this is not working. You see, the thing is that when the king goes back, you're going to play queen h4. And you see, let's say now you play queen h4, and now you're still threatening check and then checkmate. And when the king moves again, you can take the bishop with the pawn. The queen this time will be protecting the pawn in e7, and the pawn will be making a fork attacking the two rooks, and you're going to be winning loads of material. So, and even then, here in this position, instead of king h7, what if the king had gone to h8 straight away to try and make a rook g8 happen? But now queen e3, attacking this pawn with checkmate coming, and that's it. It's unstoppable. If king goes to e7, then again check, and you go into h4. So that is the thematic move to remember. After knight d5, knight takes here is not good. What about the queen going straight away to d7 to protect the bishop? Okay, well, you take back, and now bishop h4. And you're still pinning the knight, and this pin is forever. Even black playing top engine moves now, like rook to d7, to give more protection over f7, whilst black switches the other rook to play as well. King h1. It's almost a Zugzwang already. Rook e8 by black, all best moves. Rook to e2 by white. The idea of the white player is to play the following moves. Rook to g1, and then g4, g5, and so on. This is black having played top engine moves only up to move 20. We're going to close the line here because we know all the plans and all the ideas that we have. It's extremely unlikely that you will have to remember all the way until this move. You just have to remember the plan when they play queen to d7, how to carry on, and then you have to figure out from there. Okay, one more recap with something a bit different. So f4 and d6, knight f3, bishop g4, and we go and pin the opponent knight as well. Now here, what if black plays knight to f6? This is also a very traditional position. We have never seen it before in the last 30 plus videos. But look, the two knights by white, the two knights by black, and the two bishops are gone out. There's like the four knights here, just very traditional. The pawns in the center, except there's a pawn in f4. Otherwise, it would be like you know, like a Spanish, very traditional line. So here you play d3, and a move like bishop e7, actually this is now a transposition from one of the positions we've seen before in the previous videos. Here you have to play h3, the bishop can't go back because then g4 and f5 will trap it, and after bishop takes, yeah, we've seen it before, so this is a perfect transposition. So let's look at bishop moving. What about pawn taking in f4? This is to slow down the strength of the center of the white player, because we want to play d4, e5, and I mean also what black knows, we're going to play h3 and force the bishop away, and then we're going to have double attack on e5, and this bishop is unable to help the square e5. So let's look at this move. Okay, you take in f4, and now a6. The black player might think, okay, you know what, at least you might take the knight, I take back. I don't have any weakness, these three pawns are just fine, and at least I've taken, yes, I've given you a tempo because I've allowed your bishop to develop, but at least you don't create that massive weakness on the c file. Fine, you take, doesn't matter. We hate knights, so we take them. h3, the bishop has to move. The bishop doesn't have to take in this case because the f pawn is not there anymore, so bishop h5 seems to be possible. But now you play g4, bishop g6, and the thematic e2. Every time you play h3 and then g4 and the bishop goes to g6, always play queen e2. It's always good in every line. How much evidence do I have to back this up? Enough, but probably not as much as needed to make the claim. However, queen e2 is always the best move in that position. Just do it. Bishop e7, long castle. And how is it that we have an advantage? It's very simple. Black can never get the center. He can never play d5 because then we play e5. He cannot move this bishop anymore. And we also have very smooth development of the rooks, and we can push the pawns and go all the way up and smash the king side. This is black having played the most solid moves, therefore we actually don't have a huge advantage here, but we have a very easy and clear plan. Although we don't have the bishop pair, which is a shame. Anyway, after castling, white now continues with knight d4, attacking c6, and also preparing maybe to go to f5, where it will be sitting to the right of the father. So after queen to d7, protecting the pawn in c6, also because you always have that plan of like going to c6 anyway. If you take this bishop, a queen takes back, and then you play bishop g5, that's a forever pin, right? I mean, not really, it's not a forever pin, but it's so ugly for the opponent. So let's look now how to continue. Rook h to g1, this is the move. c5, attacking the knight. Knight f5. The knight there is sitting so well. Rook a to b8. Developing and putting pressure on our queen side. Here now, crazy enough, we have to give up this knight. But obviously because that's the thematic move. Take, take, and now h4. Not even bishop g5. h4 because h5 wins a piece. So black has to play h5, right? H6 is too weak. You can push anyway. So I mean, you can push h5 goes up and then g5, and you're gonna open everything up. For more information, look at the videos on how to beat the Caro-Kann. So after h5, bishop g5, and that's a great pin. Now you can say, what if queen e6? Doesn't that unpin it? No, because we're gonna take. As I said, we hate knights, so we take them. Queen takes back in f6, and now we take this pawn. And that's it, we're completely winning. The bishop can't take back because of the queen, it has to go back. Fine. We play queen to g4. Preventing this queen to give us this annoying check. c6 by black with the idea of playing d5. Because there's nothing else to do. These are not just random moves. No, the moves does anything. Rook e8 doesn't do anything. Rook b4 doesn't do anything. Maybe they can double up the two rooks, but then, you know, it's a slow plan and it's not going to go anywhere anyway. Because even when the rook goes to b2, it's not really going to be one. Besides, you can also stop it with knight a4. Rook, okay, now rook d to f1. Attacking the queen. Queen has to go, but also she has to guard the square g7 because we're threatening checkmate. h6 now, putting more pressure over that square. And now black's best move according to the engine is g6, which is tragic. What else is there to do? I mean, you're also threatening to simply take in g7. Queen takes back, rook takes back, check, king moves, and then you bring the other rook, and yeah, the game plays itself. The opponent has no threats. After g6, the best move is queen to d7. And the best move by your opponent is king to h8. You see, if black tries a swap, let's say queen to e6, you just take this pawn. If black goes to e8, then you take this pawn. So it's impossible for black to save both pawns. The best move is king to h8. And then you play rook takes in f7 and you take the game from there. It's completely winning. Now the threat you have is very simple actually. You're threatening to take in c6 and then play knight d5. Also, we've made this bishop completely unable to move, and black will never be able to push g5, obviously. And let's not mention that queen to h2 to attack this pawn, it obviously doesn't work, because yes, you're going to take in c6, black can take the pawn in h4 with an attack on the pawn in h6. But you see, you take here, black takes here, then you play knight to d5. And now you're threatening knight to f7. After taking the bishop, the game would play itself. If black takes this pawn, okay, this is check, the king has to move, but then we're going to play knight f6 check, king moves, then you take this bishop, and either black takes back with the queen or with the king, the rook in h1 will be winning material. So you might wonder, what about f5? And now we can't play knight f6 because the rook is there. Well, fine, you take this pawn. This pawn is pinned anyway. Well, fine, and not f5, what about f6? But black might give us the exchange, and he should do it. So after this move, and rook takes back, and rook takes back, we're completely winning this endgame. And a few moves ago, if you remember, before we got the chance to play rook d to f1 attacking the queen, we decided to play the move c6 to support d5, but the thing is that we have too many threats after rook d to f1. You might wonder, what about rook to b7? The idea of playing rook to b8 and going for an attack on b2. We can't really push this pawn because then the queen can take in c3 whilst guarding g7. So after rook to b7, which is the best move by black, here we play queen to g5. And, you know, we're giving the opponent a chance of swapping, and they're basically reducing our strong initiative. How come? Well, the thing is, black can't really refuse the trade, because after queen to d4, then we're just going to play knight to d5. And the position evaluated +4, you know, this knight there is unstoppable. It's got way too much power. See, knight d5, f6 can't happen because queen g7 is mate. f5 cannot happen either. because c3, and now the queen will have to abandon the dark diagonal, and we're going to be able to checkmate the opponent. So the queen has to take the knight. It's kind of the only thing left to do at this point. I mean, you can say e5, but then d4. Take, and yes, the queen has to, I mean, the queen is lost. So in this position, the only thing left to do is to take this queen. Pawn takes back, and now we're threatening g6, winning the bishop, right? Black is forced to play g6 to stop us from doing that. But this is now ridiculous because we're just going to play h6, and this bishop is dead. Okay, you might say maybe in this case the situation is different. Black can play f5, and the black can play like h8, and the bishop can go to g8 and play again. And f5 seems to be making perfect sense, but you're just going to take it. And obviously taking back with the pawn is not possible because g6 wins a piece. So rook takes f5, but now knight to e4. Position evaluated +5. Our passed pawns are connected, and we got the two rooks very well placed. Black has no threats, and it's like basically a piece down. So now let's look, just to close this once for all, let's look at a few more passive setups, but nonetheless necessary because they happen all the time. So d6 and knight to f3. We've been going through bishop g4 a lot. What about bishop to e7 now? Here, you just take the pawn straight away. And this obviously will have to be taken back. So let's look at these two different lines. If black takes back with the knight, which is not good because it gives us the possibility to put another pawn in the center, and also this bishop will not be able to move. So after the knight takes and queen takes back, it's just so much better for white. Knight f6, h3, stopping bishop g4. That would have been a waste of time. Castle, bishop e3 developing. There's nowhere to go for the bishop, so c6, so the idea of maybe b5, b4, and then the bishop can play in a minute. Bishop d3, very normal development. Rook e8, long castle. And now b5 is too slow because white already plays e5. And this knight will have to go to a very uncomfortable square. We also are going to have ideas like queen e4, threatening mate, creating some weaknesses around the opponent king. Position already evaluated almost +3. That really says a lot, and black can't just go to b4 with the pawn as a counter-attack because you can take this knight and it comes with an attack on another piece. If after e5 take, same thing, black can go to d5 with the knight, but you can either just swap everything. And remember that this pawn is now free. It's going to be free after all the swaps. This pawn will be completely free because there's no pawn in c6, but even if there was, you could play queen takes a8, so this pawn in b5 is just weak, so that's not going to happen. Let's not look at b5. Let's look at instead another move that looks that is thematic about how to deal with it. d5 by black. Okay, e5, and now knight e4 is not possible because you're attacking it multiple times. Knight to d7, moving away with the idea of playing c5, obviously. Okay, well, too late. You're going to play rook d to f1. And now you're threatening here in f7. Okay, rook to f8, defending. Queen to h5. And now you're threatening here in h7. g6, defending. Queen to h6. If black goes back to e8 with the rook now and says, like, you know, I'm going to play bishop to f8 to kick your queen away, and then I might play the bishop in fianchetto and take it from there. Too late, because you're going to do a sacrifice. Rook takes f7. Boom! How about that? King cannot take back, but you're also threatening here in h7, so you're completely winning. So if the king does take back, you take in h7, and it's a checkmate in maximum 5 moves here. Activate the pieces, you know, king going back, you play the bishop. If king goes down here, you can also take another pawn and take it from there. And here in this position, it's not like black can avoid it. It's not like, okay, you can say black doesn't have to play rook e8, of course, because that allows you to check the sacrifice, but what else is there to do? There's no moves. I mean, if black plays f6 to try and challenge this very strong center and then start trading off pieces or something, then you just sacrifice the bishop in g7. And pawn takes back, but then you take back, the king moves. You see, like this, and then take, king moves, and then you have the thematic rook to f5 move with the low mower idea. This is now unstoppable. So back in this position, you might say, what if black doesn't do anything? Right? What if he plays c5? Maybe going for c4, which would be amazing. Well, fine, you play h4. And after c4, attacking the bishop, you play h5. And now we are giving up a piece. We don't care about this bishop being taken, because then you can take here in g6, and you got attack on h7 with queen and rook. And so that's game over. What about knight to f6? Attacking this square, h7, and giving up a piece. Okay, fine, you take with the pawn. And when the bishop takes back, your bishop here in d3 is still under attack. And it looks like our opponent might have calmed down our initiative a bit, but you just carry on, go taking g6. And that was it. There was nothing. So let's make a recap. Right, d6, knight f3, bishop e7 early on. Take, and when the pawn takes back, this looks much more logical, so let's do this. Okay, bishop b5, now you're threatening to take this knight and double up and isolate those pawns. So bishop d7, preventing that. d3, now you're threatening to take the knight, and whatever way you get taken back, then you have a free pawn in e5, it's completely free. So bishop to d6 now stops that from happening. Fine, castle. And now if you play knight f6, situation is already compromised with bishop to g5, and then you're going to play d5, knight d5, and so on. Obviously h6, g5 is not recommendable to play, it's really stupid, because then the bishop in g3 puts a lot of pressure on this pawn, and we can take this knight anytime we want. So let's not go through this. What about black playing this annoying move, h6? This move should stop our bishop from going to g5, and well, it does, it actually does. So queen to e1 is now the move. When you don't get a chance to play bishop to g5, just play queen to g3, because if you don't get a chance to play bishop to g5, the reason is that there's a pawn in h6. So if you play queen to g3, black castles, then you're attacking the pawn in h6, you're threatening to win it, which means you're preventing the opponent from castling. Knight f6, knight d5, already swapping with that knight. The reason is simple, if knight takes, you take back, you're attacking this knight. The knight will have to move, and after all the trades and so on, this is a free pawn. The e5 pawn is free. So black castles, okay, fine, take, queen takes back, and now knight to h4 is the key move. We're protecting it with the queen, and we're threatening to go to f5, from where we will rule the world. So the rook's attacking the queen, so queen to e7, c3. And now a6, attacking the knight. How to react? We don't trade, because obviously we don't have an extra attack on e5 anymore. We have no reason to give up the bishop pair in this case, because we're not winning a pawn. b5, bishop to b3, bishop to e6. Does our opponent want to swap? We don't know, but if he does, we're happy. We don't care, because we're going to reach f5 with the knight. When we go to f5 with the knight, it will be game over. So here now you play queen to g3. Let's make an example. If black plays knight to a5 to attack our bishop, you just take this pawn in h6. That's the plan you have, and it comes with the threat of mate. So that's not possible. A move like, okay, the best move here will be king to h7 according to the engine. And now we go on with knight to f5, and we're still threatening mate. What can be done here? Black can't just play queen to f6 to put more defense over the square g7, because you will simply take this bishop in d6 completely for free, since you are releasing an attack of the queen with the rook. So that move is not possible. What about bishop taking this extremely powerful knight? But take back with the pawn, and this is now the beginning of a true torture for our opponent. A couple of examples. If black plays e4, releasing an attack on this queen, f6 comes. So we don't care about the bishop taking our queen, because we can take this back, but then our pawn is attacking the bishop whilst this pawn is attacking the rook. That means we're winning material. So after f6, if black takes with the pawn, then you play queen to h4, and now you see, if black takes like a queen to h4 attacking h6, it's inevitable, you're completely winning. You're also threatening rook to f6 with threats of low mower checkmate. So let's not go through that. Here, if queen takes, okay, take, and then the bishop takes your queen, but now you take this knight completely for free. So back in this position, we went through e4 by black, releasing an attack on the queen. That didn't work. What about queen f6 to stop f6 from going forward? Bishop to d5, pinning the knight, and the knight can't move. The knight cannot be defended. So the only move is bishop moving away so that the queen defends this knight. Bishop c5 check, king moves, rook a to d8, getting out of the pin, and now releasing an attack on the bishop. Bishop e4. This is way too strong a center. Okay, fine. Knight to e7, rerouting and putting more pressure over over f5, but still h4 comes now. Our opponent is running out of moves. What to do now? Two examples. If black goes back with bishop to b6, maybe the idea of playing c5 and then c4, hitting the d3 pawn. Well, okay, bishop g5 wins the game on the spot. Boom! How about that? The queen will have to move. And f6 is happening for real. When f6 happens, it comes with a check. So the queen really cannot move. If pawn takes, then pawn takes back, comes with an attack on the queen. The queen is forced to move. And after queen d6, then queen h2 check. King moves. And now f6. And this is going to be a checkmate in h7. What if it gets blocked like this? g6. Well, queen h6 ends the game. You're attacking g7. So in this position, instead of bishop back to b6, we mentioned, what about rook to h8, which is the top engine move? Okay, b4 attacks the bishop. Bishop moves. a4. And now we're taking this pawn and we're developing the rook on the 7th rank. Knight to d5 by black. Does this work? The idea of going to f4. Also attacking c3. So bishop to d2 defends it. Knight to f4 then. Rook to f3. Puts enough defense over the square, we don't have to worry anymore. Prepares to double up the rooks. c5 by black. Okay, you just take in c5. Bishop takes, and now queen to g4. Let's say black plays rook h to e8. The best move is to take this pawn and then produce a passed pawn. When black takes you back, then you can trap the knight. If instead of rook h to 8, black plays knight d5, getting out of the trouble for the moment, apparently, you just take in b5. Takes back, and now rook b1, targeting the weakness. And now what to do? If black goes if black knight goes back to f4, you play g3. Then the knight is forced to go back to d5, and then you just simply win this pawn in b5. Position is absolutely winning. If instead here, instead of knight f4, black plays knight to c7 to defend the pawn, well, bishop to e1 comes, rook h to e8. Queen h5, and we're going to play g4, g5, and that's unstoppable. So let's say, for example, rook b8 to defend the pawn further, and maybe the idea of pushing it potentially, g4, and we're going to drop the line there because we've gone way too far. Okay, one more recap and then we're going to finally finish. So after d6 and knight f3, what if black plays this other passive idea, bishop to d7? Now here it really is completely pointless to play a move like bishop to b5, so you're gonna have to play bishop c4, bishop e7, castle, knight f6, and now f5, and already black is compromised. It doesn't mean like white is completely winning or anything, but with very good play and understanding your plans, you know exactly what to do now. Let's make an example. Castle. Okay, a4. So we can make sure to remain on this diagonal in case we get harassed. Knight to b4 by black. Let's look at this plan. The knight cannot be kicked out from that square. And black might be preparing c6, d5. Or even just d5 straight away. Or maybe bishop c6 and then d5. Okay, d3. So let's look at this move. c6. King moves. h1. Okay, d5. Bishop b3, no reason to allow your opponent to get even more center. So now we're attacking the pawn in e5. So after queen to c7, queen e2, rook a to d8, getting into the center. This looks fine, looks completely fine for black, except you're missing the part where you play g4 now. Completely careless. This is a sacrifice. The knight can't take the pawn, because then rook to g1 is completely winning position for us, Then you're going to play bishop h6. You also have queen g2. It's completely winning. What if instead black plays king to h8, getting out of the future pin? Well, g5. The knight will have to move. So knight to g8. Knight to h4 comes now. And you see how smoothly we're playing. We're going all the way to h5. And it's unstoppable. I mean, you might say, okay, g6 does stop it. But then you play bishop to d2. Now, yeah, here you simply have an idea of playing rook to f3. The other rook to double up in f1. The queen to e1. The pawn to f6. These are all moves that are going to happen no matter what. And the opponent can't move anything. Position evaluated +3 or +4 or something. So let me see. So let's see. Rook to f3. What if black plays f6? Putting more attack over this pawn and says, you know what, you take me, I take back, at least my pieces are breathing. Well, now you play rook to h3, threatening knight g6. It's a deadly move. Because you see, if you just take the pawn, let's say pawn takes, and knight g6, king moves, then knight takes in e7. The knight will have to come back. But then you just take in h7 with the rook. It's a check and it's completely winning position. If king takes, then you're infiltrating with the queen. And after taking this pawn with check and then moving again with check again, you got the rook coming to g1. And that's going to be very helpful because you're going to low mower the opponent. So back a few moves ago here, what is there left to do for black? What if king to g7, getting out of the very strong pin? Of that move. But then now you can just take the pawn, and this is completely winning because you're opening the files. And what is there left to do? Even if black takes with the bishop and comes with an attack on our knight, has tried to calm down our initiative here, the best move is sacrificing the knight in g6. And it's devastating. If black does take back either way, you play rook to g1, the development is complete. Position evaluated +550, if that's not enough. And in this position, we went through g6, and what happens next? What about h6? That doesn't help either, because you're just going to take, and when the bishop takes your knight in h4, you can just take in g7. King takes, but a queen to g4 should be checkmate soon. The very last recap. So here f4, d6, knight f3, knight f6, the 4 knights game. Okay, bishop to b5. What if black plays bishop to e7? Castle. a6 attacking the knight. What are we gonna do? Crazy enough, we don't take this knight. Pawn takes back. Take with the attack on the e5 pawn, because queen d4 is check and will win our knight in e5. So you gotta be careful to that. Bishop a4 comes. Bishop d7, and now d3. It's very similar to earlier. We were threatening what? Remember, we're threatening to take and take back, but our king was not castled. When your king is castled, you cannot take the pawn in e5 with the knight because queen d4 is a fork. So castle, and now a3. Okay, what about b5? Bishop to b3, and we have somewhere to go. Let's make a couple of examples here. If bishop to e6, well, knight to d5 comes. And now what to do? Let's make an example. Rook b8, king h1, h6 by black, bishop e3, continuing development. There's a lot of pressure in the center. There's a lot of possible captures, but we're not capturing anything. Rook to e8, fine. We play f5 then. Okay, the bishop will have to move. Bishop to c8, queen to d2 is the best move. And white is completely winning, because you're threatening the usual. g4, g5, you've got the rook, the knight can't really take the pawn in g4. So back here, when we played bishop e6 and then knight d5, what about bishop taking the knight? This super powerful knight. Well, take back with the pawn, and now the knight has to move. The knight is forced to go to, let's say, not really forced, but it's kind of has to go to d4. But now you take in e5, and this is free. Although we are going to take the knight. Pawn takes back, and now queen to f3. Okay, development. Queen to d7. Bishop to g5. Rook a to e8, developing. Rook a to e1. h6 attacking the bishop. What is the bishop going to do? Simply bishop h4. Position is completely winning. This pawn is weak. It's going to fall. Black can't move any of his pieces. I mean, black can't really move the knight anywhere. So if he does, he goes to h7. I mean, this is like, it's not really going to happen, because that means that your opponent will have to have played 20 stockfish top level moves. It's not going to happen. But even if the game gets all the way to here, taking e7 with the rook, rook takes back, take back. And now the slight advantage that you have consists of the fact that you're ending the game with the bishop against the knight. And even if queen swaps, let's say queen e3, take. Now rook to f3 attacks the pawn. And we should be able to take that pawn completely for free, because rook e8 cannot really be played to defend that, since he will play king to f1, and then you're taking the pawn from here, right? You're going to e2 and you're going to have the extra support. So back in this position, one last thing. We went through bishop e6 idea. What about knight to d4? Fine, take here in e5. If the knight takes your bishop, then just take the knight. You're going to be equal. The knight can even take the rook, but then you're going to take the bishop. And the pawn will come with an attack on the queen and the rook. That means that this knight takes bishop here is a blunder. You're going to take you're going to win a lot of material. So what about pawn takes back? Very quietly. Okay, fine. Now we're recapturing e5. We're up a pawn. Bishop to c5, threatening a very strong discover attack. Too late. Bishop takes in f7, check. Boom. How about that? Worst case scenario, we can just move the king and we don't have to worry about this knight taking anything. What if the rook takes? Well, crazy enough, we do take. And we really don't care about that position. So we're up material a lot. If the king takes the knight, you play queen to h5, check. The knight is pinned. King to g8, and now queen wins the bishop, so you're completely winning. Here, if our opponent plays knight c2, discover check of the bishop, comes with an attack on the rook, it looks deadly. You move the king, the knight takes the rook, and now though you win the queen. You didn't see that. Okay, well, in this position, what about, instead of king f7 or knight to c2, what about queen to e7? And it seems like our opponent will be able to recapture the knight without worrying about anything, defends the bishop, and also still threatening to make a discover check. The key move now is e5. What is there to do? Black can't just develop the bishop. Let's make an example. Bishop to g4 with an attack on the queen, because you will take this knight and comes with an attack on the opponent queen. You're winning material. What about instead knight to g4, saving the knight? Bishop to g5, attacking the queen. Queen e6, has to move away. Knight to e4. Still careless about the discover check of this knight. But this move comes with an attack on the bishop, so that's why. Okay, bishop to b6. And now we're, once again, now here we have to play king h1. Okay. Rook to f8 now, doubling the attack on this knight. Finally, we counterattack with h3. And the knight's gone nowhere. If he goes to h6, then we can just move this knight, take, swap, and we're, it's an amazing situation. What about rook takes f7 first? Okay, take this one with the queen. And when the queen takes, take back, take, c3 attacking the knight. Knight has to move to e6. Take the rook, king takes back. Rook to e1. h6 attacking the bishop, bishop to e3. We have gone once again very, very far. This is the last video of this series, so I wanted to cover it so deeply. Now you should be aware by now of every possible pattern that will arise in the Vienna Gambit. If you've been following this video and you do a lot of tactics every day, you should be crashing players like there's no tomorrow with this opening. Well, this has been a very long journey, but it's finally come to an end. And there will be another video in the future about the Vienna Gambit, only covering the unusual things that will happen to me in every one of my blitz games or over-the-board tournaments. So whatever happens, if there's something I realized I don't have or I've never explained before, or something a bit unusual, I'll show how to punish on the extra videos. And thank you for following so far.